All right. Good morning. Welcome to this fine Sunday morning. Yes, it's on. Can you hear me? Go to Sam's, please. Okay, now I can hear me. All righty. Everybody doing good? Okay, y'all look dead. We can't have this. We're going to open up in prayer. The first few that I have listed is continue to remember Tony's family. As you know, she lost her mama, and the service is going to be following the service and the funeral. So be in her in prayer. My mama is currently sick, so she's been fighting all kind of infection of respiratory. She's going to get an appointment this week and see what can be done. Is there any other prayer requests that I do not have that we need to make known? Alrighty. Oh wow. Okay. Awesome. All right. So just remember Daphne's mom. Anyone else? Danny. Alrighty. Anyone else?
I just want to thank the Lord for His touch. Yeah, I've been sick, and I think it's went through the whole family, but I thank God for His mercy, His grace, and for bringing us back. Amen.
Amen.
Absolutely.
All right. Oh no. Okay. Is that just in the hospital, the ER, or she having surgery? Emergency room? Okay. Did not know about that. Alrighty. Any last prayer requests?
Remember all the laws, our elections.
Laws. Yes.
We need to move them forward. Amen.
Yes, we do. Lost loved ones. Oh goodness. Alrighty. Okay. Anybody got unspoken requests? You can just signify with your uplifted hand. All right. And God He knows all about them. I'm going to change things up a bit. I'm going to have a volunteer woman to pray today. So, any ladies that would like to volunteer to pray? Do I have any volunteers to pray? That's a woman? If not, I'm going to volunteer y'all. All right, Miss Meany, would you do the honor of praying with us? Thank you, Lord, for this day. Lord, as you be with us. Amen. Thank you. All righty. So we're going to be opening up a new series about godly women in the scriptures today. So that's why I encourage someone as a lady to pray with us. Today I will be teaching about Sarah, Abraham's wife. The title of this lesson is The Matriarch, or Sarah, the Matriarch of Israel. Matriarch means a woman who is head of a family or tribe. I'm combining Sarah's and Abraham's story as husband and wife. Together, they are great examples for us to apply in our daily walk with the Lord as they hold fast unto their promises. I'll be pointing out how Abraham and Sarah's love story came together in difficult times of waiting for a son. Our main focus is upon Sarah, for she is an example of a person being rewarded by God as a result of having faith in his promises. We will see at the end of this lesson how she became the matriarch of Israel. So God rewards those who exercise faith in his promises is our central truth this morning and throughout eternity. Who can prepare this morning to exercise our spiritual muscles for Christ? Because I know I did. I got them ready. And I'm going to wake y'all up and shake them because this is Pentecostal. All right. All right. Our scriptures today will be from the books of Genesis, Hebrews, and 1 Peter, which will be discussed later in Sarah faithfully follows Abraham. Sarah is blessed by God, and by faith, Sarah receives the promise. The golden text for today is in Hebrews 11:11. Through faith, also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithfully who had promised. From studying this lesson, there were many themes you can name, but the ones that I got from were God and family-centered, being patient, listening, and being obedient. This morning, I will be providing examples for each of these themes, hopefully to teach everyone different levels of understanding the Bible. There will be multiple times of interaction and something worth paying attention for, hint, hint. As a friendly reminder, please don't be shy to raise your hand to say something. We all have opinions and we want to be heard. And when you consider raising your hands, just raise them for Jesus, So we're going to exercise our faith this morning. Before I dive deep into this lesson, let me provide everyone history about Sarah. Sarah's name was given by her parents, and Sarah was given by God. For right now, we'll focus on her name being Sarai. Her name is known for hospitality and beauty, faithfulness, resilience, and laughter in the face of odds. Being married in Bible times, I need to address that the cultural context is which she lived in. For example, the husband stood as the legal and spiritual head, and the oldest male made the decisions for the entire extended family. Let me just say that Sarai got used to Abraham telling her things that God said. Deep down, I can imagine her flesh boiling up inside her, be like, okay, I'm tired of it. When's my turn? As a woman in the Bible, we had our limitations. But don't let that fool you as we look into Sarah. She wanted to become a woman of distinction to the mother of Isaac. Distinction means being different between similar people. Can you just imagine of all the plans she wanted to accomplish with her son? Sarai's actions, words wrestle with the temptation to follow the options of culture in an attempt to bring fulfillment to her husband and family life. In other words, she didn't want to fit in with other women in the tents. She wanted to be separate, which is great from the get-go. Alrighty, so with Sarah faithfully following Abraham, we're going to be talking about leaving family and country from Genesis 12, 1 through 9. If you can get your Bibles out and look with me on that. And it says, "Now the Lord has said unto Abram, get thee out of that country." Has God ever kicked you out before? Because he has plenty of times from me. "And from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great. And thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless thee that bless thee, and curse thee that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. If God told me all at this at once of what I'm going to become, it would have been too much for me to handle all at once. So I'm just like, thankfully, God just gives me little pieces to the puzzles, you know. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abraham took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their substance that they went for to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shinem, into the plain of Morith. And the Canaanites was then in the land. And the Lord appeared unto Abram, and said, Unto they see which I give this land. And they builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. The narrated of God's calling and covenant with Abraham, including Sarah. God knew that what he was doing when putting Abraham and Sarah together, making them a perfect match. In order to bury Isaac, the covenant child, God had to pick out a particular woman, and he chose to accomplish his calling for Abraham. And I am thankful that God's selection is upon me and upon everyone else, because we all have a calling. No matter how big, no matter how small, we all have a calling. Okay. When leaving a place that you have lived for so long and have to move on, at first you're like, no, I'm not going to move. I want to stay in my territory, being protective. But eventually you will come around and accept the fact that God calls you to another city. You got to go. Speaking of a new city, this reminds me of how God strengthens your faith by sending you to an unknown place so you can shine his light for his glory. His family was leaving behind an estimate population of 24,000 people, 2-story houses, a sewer system, and neatly laid out streets. It's like heaven. Not necessarily, but it's like paradise. Anyone heard of Wado Stadium in Michigan? Anybody? North? All right, well, then it won't apply. But I can tell you. It can seat 30,000 people. It's a football stadium, and that's how many it can seat. So I was giving y'all like a visual of how much 24,000 people are. In a way, this city is nothing more than a city that has everything at your fingertips. However, the land of Ur fell into great spiritual darkness. A moon god, Nana, stood as the supreme god, which people considered this god to be the source of fertility for crops, herbs, and families. We were told that Sarah faithfully followed Abraham. Sarah was 10 years younger than her husband. I wonder sometimes, why do men go for older men? Why do women go for older men and vice versa? Assuming Abraham and Sarah was married in later teens, that would make them well over 40 years in marriage moving to Canaan. As previously stated above, Abraham almost brought his entire family. The servants, large number of livestock, possessions, husbands and wives, and so much more. And from the genes of Abraham's family, they continue to be childless, which were barren. On the other hand, God appeared to Abraham and said the covenant son was still intact. After the news, Abraham builds an altar and worships the Lord. This example shows that we need to praise and worship God before the promise as we journey on today's world. Question. All right, ready for interaction? Don't all raise y'all's hands at once, okay? According to Genesis 12:3, who would be blessed and who would be cursed? You didn't raise your hand? I'm the teacher. Alrighty, we got one. Yes.
It says, and I will bless thee that bless thee, and I will curse him that curse thee.
Alrighty. So who would be blessed and who would be cursed? Is that involves anybody? Or does that involve somebody else? Okay, well, there we go. Alrighty. How widespread did God intend this blessing to be? Oh, now y'all don't want to raise hands. Okay, go ahead. Yep, that's what it is. Alrighty. I'll give y'all a little break. Living as Sarah's daughters. We're going to be looking into 1 Peter 3 and 6. Whose adorning, let it not be the outward adorning of panning the hair and wearing of gold, or of putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of meek and quiet spirit, which is the sight of God of great price. For after this manner in the old time the holy women also, who trusted in God, adored themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands, even as Sarah obeyed Abram, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well and are not afraid with any amazement. The word adoring means true beauty resides in outward modesty and inner loveliness and enduring charm of a meek and quiet spirit that is precious in the eyes of God. Being meek is being gentle, gracious, submissive, and loving concern for others. As for quiet, it does not create any disturbance. I'll let that sink in. In these verses, we are able to identify Sarah as a woman and a wife that demonstrated modesty and beauty, not only from the outward appearance, but from within. Modesty applies to both males and females. No exceptions. For Sarah, she had a genuine beauty that is within her. She was a quiet, gentle, and had a submissive spirit that spoke loudly as her genuineness. In other words, she was an introvert, like me. A type of lady that hides in the background. And whenever I was reviewing over this, there was a more of a special lady that came to mind of Sarah's characteristics. It would be Sister Fosdick. Her genuine speaks of her being a supportive wife within the cultural environment of her society. Her absolute submission to her husband, Abraham, which in this case it would be Pastor Fosdick. The inner beauty reveals itself in our speech, spirit, materialism, or mannerism, and even bodily movements. It's a shame that men and women consumed with these issues of outer beauty, that their inner self may be overlooked. Today, people are so caught up inwardly that it becomes the most important measure to fix. We can use Sarah's inner beauty as a guidance for others to follow. Women who faithfully live a life of holiness can be seen as daughters of Sarah. Men, y'all are not off the hook, okay? These verses also should serve as a guide for men in selecting a wife and teaching their daughters. Out of the people that I have asked, what did they do to help find a significant other? The men respond, they prayed. On the other hand, women prayed and made a list out of what they wanted in a husband. So you see the balance? Sister Fosdick's list was to be a preacher's wife, which includes being caring, loving, kind, and helpful. So the pastor would be so pleased of what he has praised for. And is that right? Because if you did, she's going to get you. Alrighty. Studying over Abraham and Sarah's love story, I picked out 5 top things for us to consider. 1, patience and having faith in God's promises. 2, decide the roles between each other, whether they include the chores around the house. So, for example, you got the women doing the cooking, the cleaning, and the men doing the outside. Well, I kind of like both doing both, okay? It's not a 1-1. So it can't be 50-50. We need to come together, men and women, with chores.
Sometimes that's got to be an exception. I will do clothes, but other things,
I mean, as long as you can work it out and make it up to your wife, then I'm all good. Alrighty. And then 3rd, discuss how each one wants to be treated. I know this is a minor detail, but we overlook it sometimes. 4th, encourage one another by understanding, being respectful, reflecting on biblical role model of a strong and supportive marriage. Lastly, men, look for virtues in a godly wife, whereas women become those virtues as a godly wife. As we continue from the next segment is Sarah is being blessed by God. This is where she gets her new name. And in fact, it's a supernatural promise that's coming to life. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai, thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. Have you ever wondered why God gave people new names? And I will bless her, and give thee a song also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Back in Bible times, a person's name was considered to be mentally related to a child's personality and future. To a certain degree, it was thought to determine what he or she would become and accomplish. The reason why God changed Sarah's and Abraham's name was to reflect on new accomplishments or positions. Just think, every time we accomplish something, our name will be changed, and y'all can't keep up with each other's names. That's how I look at it. That was supposed to be a joke, but it's all right. During this time of patiently waiting for the covenant son, it has been 24 years since God revealed himself to them. After years of waiting, Sarah, out of desperation, said, Take Hagar to conceive the covenant child. Okay, let's stop right there. She messed up. We're going to reflect on her choices. How could Sarah even suggest her husband should have sexual relations with one of the female servants? Like, how? Like what? So out of desperation. So it's like those what we've been learning. I mean, when you're hungry, you're gonna do something.
It's like today we have women who can't bear children. At this point, Sarah hadn't been able to bear.
Right.
So what do women do now? They go out and be a surrogate to bear that child. So that's similar to what Sarah did.
Mm. Yeah.
she had a promise from God.
She did. That is her right. Yeah. this example is being tempted. On Abraham's side, why did he listen to Sarah when he was the head of the household? I'm telling men right now to stand up and become the men of God, and not to be tempted to what any woman says at you. And women, please control yourself. This resulted in the birth of Ishmael, the father of Arabic nation. After his birth, God remained silent for 13 years until it was impossible for Abraham and Sarah to conceive a child. Let me put this in my terms. You both didn't wait, which resulted in punishment and major consequences for their actions. It reminds me when I got my tail torn up plenty of times by the belt. Looking back, I'm really thankful my parents did that to me because I won't be the woman I am today. Don't get me wrong, when God didn't speak to them, He didn't reject them. He just taught them to wait longer. Now we're going to be switching gears to a new meanings of their names. Sarai names changed to Sarah, which means princely, beautiful, powerful princess that had a practice of confiscating beautiful women. In the Hebrew language, it means my princess. Along with being a noble woman or princess, as for Abram, his name means high father, while Abraham means father of a multitude. The reason why Sarah's names changed indicates she was a part of a covenant and would bear a son. The reason why Sarah's names changed, I just read that. Oh my goodness. Okay, her physically dead womb would be open, and she would become the mother of nations with ruling kings. And in Genesis 17:19, we're going to look into there. And it says, Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah, thy wife, shall bear thee a son. Indeed, thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. So in this, with Abraham and everything, he was just more of in disbelief. He's like, why did it happen? And Jimmy, how old was Abraham whenever he gave? He was 100. Stay awake. Alrighty. In response to somewhat outlandish for them to become parents, Abraham fell on his face, or not face, oh my goodness, well, fell down on the ground and laughed within his heart. It sounded utterly disturbed. Two exceptionally old people would become parents. Imagine back problems, slower, aches, pains, hard to listen, eyesight, and you want me to conceive a son? Like, I don't want to be rude to my elders, but Abraham offered a counter proposal saying Ishmael could be the covenant son. So Abraham was trying to reason with God and be like, who does he think he is? Of what God's saying. Note how firmly God responded, saying Sarah would be the mother of this special son, who was to be named Isaac, meaning laughter. Abraham's request was not too unusual, when it considers the circumstance. A substitute birth has produced a child whom they mistakenly thought could be the covenant child. Apparently, Abraham thought Sarah was no longer in the equation because of her age. But my thing is, how in the world could he neglect his wife over this matter? That's just a thought. But now, everything was supernatural turned into upside down. Ishmael was not the long-awaited son. Sarah would miraculously birth the long-awaited child. So where did that place Ishmael? He was a growing boy, loved by his father Abraham. What would be his future? That would become clear later in chapter 21. What would the future hold for Isaac? The everlasting covenant which had been established with Abraham would be inherited by Isaac. This would be fulfilled sometime after this marriage to Rebekah. God stated that the covenant would also apply to the descendants of Isaac. What a promise of reassurance to Abraham in the middle of an unbelievable change of plans and perspective. Now get this. This is a reminder that all along Sarah was a vital part of God's redemptive plan. Both she and Abraham had to go through periods of faith development and acceptance of God's plan. Alrighty, ready for interaction? Don't raise your hands all at once. How God ever given you a promise that almost seems laughable, yet you saw it fulfilled? Yes, thank you. Amen, sister. And that's your promise. And you're standing on it. Love it. Anyone else? Yes.
Our youngest son, we went through counseling because there was a big chance that due to some circumstances, he would not have been born normal. So they wanted us to sit down and counsel with him about taking him before he was born, abortion. And that was not God's will. God's will that he would be born as he is today.
Right. Yeah. And he's doing work for the Lord, I'm assuming.
And he needs a lot of prayer. He's in some situations that, only God can do that.
Only God can turn it around. But we're gonna believe in trusting in him. Okay. Or is there an improbable promise to which you are still clinging? So these are the ones like, if God gave you a promise and yet he hasn't accomplished it yet. Anyone has that? I do. I'm not gonna lie. Alrighty. So switching gears, we're gonna be talking about by faith, Sarah receives this promise. And let me just say, nothing's too hard for God. Oh, goodness. And the innumerable descendants. In Genesis chapter 18, 9 through 15, it says, And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child, which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Do you think God was testing her faith in front of Abraham? I mean, I would. Yes.
I think at 75 and 100 years old, I think any of us would have a question about that.
Of course.
And it's you know, she was like, yeah, right.
Right, yeah.
But God, you know, and Abraham too, I mean, at 100, you know, yeah, right. And it's not that he's questioning, he's just thinking through his time. You know, because 100 years then might be 1,000 years now.
This could be.
So he had lived all these years.
Mhm.
She had lived all these years. So there would be a question. I mean, every day I say, "Oh God, really? Really?" I mean, it might be me hitting my finger or something. You know, so
Right.
it's just hard to understand at that age. You know, I would question it too.
Yeah.
Also question raising a baby at that age, because you got runs with babies.
Right.
How do you do all that running?
It's like taking care of pets or kittens or something like that. It's just like, oh, I am so sorry. I got two hands. All right.
Keep in mind, Sarah was born, she was married. She never could have children.
Right.
So that plays a big part when you say, "Oh, you're going to have a child."
Hmm.
Then it was impossible. No one had children that were married.
Yeah.
It also says that they were stricken in old age.
True.
I mean, stricken is feeble.
Mhm.
You know, it's like I feel sometimes.
Right. With all of the back pain.
Right there yourself, brother. Speak for yourself. I can
Yes.
imagine going and adopting a child
Okay.
of some years.
Mhm.
But to start over, like you said with a puppy, we just did this several years ago. And it's really hard, but I can imagine with a child, our grandchildren, looking back, what that looked like
Mhm.
then, and what it looks like today.
Times has
The
changed.
world's on fast forward.
Yes.
So,
Sure is.
yeah, I can imagine.
Well, one thing that you need to look at is God always has a higher purpose with everything that he deals with. So he took an impossible situation and made it a God thing.
He did.
You know, he took a woman past the age of childbearing. And one of the things that you have to think about when you talk about Hagar, okay, she had to sit in Sarah's lap and have the baby. See, most people don't understand that, but that was a way that it became her child, you know, her heir. But in this particular situation, you have God working miracles. He's working on their faith, and then he's working on what's impossible to prove it was God.
Amen. It was.
Hey, well, you have to remember too that back then it was like a status thing if you had children or not. And a woman that was barren, you know, people probably thought something's wrong with her. So deep inside, Sarah probably felt unworthy to be a mother because so far she had never been. So a lot of her doubt may not have been in God, but in her stale feeling that she was not worthy to be a mother since she had been barren so long.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that. Oh, I see a hand. Yes.
Well, I feel like she at least had a bunch of servants that could help her. A lot of people do not have that, but Sarah had servants. She had Hagar. She had other servants that, you know, could help her do the nanny or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was a big help to her at her age.
And then right now we're just. And then right now we can just say, even though we're not servants officially, but we're servants of God. So we take care of each one of us. So we don't have to be paid or listen to anyone but God. Let me put that out. In the previous section, God revealed to Abraham and Sarah would be the mother of the covenant son Isaac. The Lord emphasized the covenant would be continued with the still-to-born son. In obedience to God's directive that all men within the covenant were to be circumcised. Abraham, Ishmael, and the other males of this household followed this rite. And that's still going on today. And I'm not saying anything more on that. At a later occasion, God made it specifically known to Sarah. God visits Sarah of her special distinction and motherhood in the near future. And that's like excellence that sets someone or something apart from others. And now I was reading something the other day where it came about, why did God visit women in the Bible, whereas men is going up to or on top of a mountain to talk with God? That's a good answer.
I want proof of that.
But anyway, it's where, yes, and the way it works is women had responsibilities. They had to cook, they had to do this, they got to do that, they got to tend to the children. So it wasn't really enough time for women to can't go up to the mountain and talk to God. So that's why. Who was that? The men. So y'all can be alone for some time.
I mean, a woman couldn't just up and trek up onto the top of the mountain by herself.
Right.
Not even today. I wouldn't do that.
Alrighty, so we're going to look into the story or the history of what went on in the tent, because they don't live in houses, they live in tents. Her whereabouts were questioned, like you said. And Abraham's response indicated a normal cultural position. So he was constantly checking on his woman. Be like, Sarah, where you going? And who you going with? Are you going with anybody? What time you'll be back? Type of questions. Women stayed in the family tent while the men ate and fellowshipped. In Genesis 18:10, indicates she remained out of sight but could hear the conversation. So in other words, she was eavesdropping, which some do today. Family tents typically were elongated rectangle and divided into 3 sections. So imagine a rectangle, 1, 2, 3. All right. So we got one for the men, which is here, one for the women, and one for baggage. Now, they didn't specifically say what kind of baggage, but I would assume that it'd be furniture, any type of stuff like that. As the family grew, new sections were added to the tent house, which could be handed down from the generation to generations. The men's section of the tent was placed to entertain visitors. Due to the heat, they frequently gathered and ate under the shade of the tree. In this arrangement, the wife could stay hidden at the entrance to the tent and shall be party to the conversation. All right. So my time has come, and I can't prolong anymore. All right, at this time, I would like everybody to close books. We got a pop quiz. I'm serious. We got a pop quiz. Close your books, everything. All right, so you got 2 examples. You can go ahead and start passing out paper. You can either do a physical copy or a paper copy. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but I just know who wants to do physical copy. Raise your hand, and Randy and Eddie will be bringing around the paper. And if you're too close to each one, separate 6 feet, please. No, you can't cheat. Anyone wants to do physical copy of the pop quiz? It's paper or a physical copy of the yeah.
What's the difference?
I can't tell you. What? It's the paper copy. Well, hang on. Yeah. Do y'all want? Okay, for the ones that wants a physical copy, is that? Do y'all want to write it out, or y'all want to? Yeah, speak it out. I mean, it's not for a grade, but I would like to quiz y'all. All right. Anybody volunteers for a physical copy? No. Shoot. Okay. Well. Alrighty. Well, that did go as planned. All right. Number 1. Reflect on a time when you had to wait for a significant promise or outcome in your life. How did this period of waiting affect your relationship or your faith? So just reflect and write number 1 on your paper, and make sure your name is on it, because not everyone knows how to put their name on their paper. Do I need to repeat the question? Okay. Reflect on a time when you had to wait for a significant promise or outcome in your life. How did this period of waiting affect your relationship or your faith? Everyone ready? All right, number 2. Sarah's actions towards Hagar resulted in conflict. Reflect on a decision in your own life that had unintended consequences for your relationships. How did you navigate the resolution? Sarah's actions towards Hagar resulted in conflict. Reflect on a decision in your own life that had unintended consequences for your relationships. How did you navigate the resolution? Alrighty, Randy, I know you just sat down, but the ones that are finished, you can just put your paper up in the air and Randy will collect it. Please. Alrighty. And before you leave today, I would like everyone's paper. So if you would, give it to Randy or Eddie, and then y'all are good to go. Thank y'all for attending Sunday school and listening.